In this video, I want to go over how I replicated the Primeagen's developer workflow, but in macOS, as he uses Linux. So what started all this? I have used Vim for many years, usually when I SSH into a server, but I never took it seriously, so one day I decided I'm gonna learn Vim, for like the fourth time. So I was probably searching around YouTube Vim related videos, and I ended up in the video that is shown here. If you haven't watched it, I would highly recommend you to go and check it out. This is the video that started my Neovim journey and taught me a different and more efficient way of using my operating system. At the time that I watched that video, I used a 55-inch TV as a monitor. I used that for like 3 years and I thought it was the best way of navigating your system. I had to use an application, it's called Moom in macOS, in which you configure the position of each one of your apps, you save the layouts, and when you turn the computer on, Moom takes over and just puts your applications in that specific position. Because I always wanted to have Obsidian in certain part of the screen, Slack in a different section of the screen, the browser in a different one, but always in the same place. So I had multiple macOS desktops. On desktop 1, for example, I would open a few apps like my browser, Obsidian, Slack. On the desktop 2, I would open different apps and so on. So as you're able to read here, this means that you have to decide where each application starts. And how do you do that in macOS? If I come here to the dock, just gonna put my mouse over here, and I'm just going to right click one of these applications. This one, for example, options, and you can assign it to a specific desktop. So that's what I had to do in the past, basically for each one of my different applications. So how did I navigate then? I had to grab my mouse. I had to see where the application was on the screen, click on it, and start working on it. If it was on a different desktop, first I had to switch to that desktop. Using the magic mouse, you can swipe between two different desktops. For example, notice that the mouse is here and I'm just gonna swipe 2 fingers and it's gonna move me to another desktop. I can go back using 2 fingers again. So that's the way that I navigated my system for years and I thought I was doing great. But eventually I just got tired. I didn't know any better actually. But I do remember thinking, man, it takes me too long to find an application and start doing something on it. Because I had to use my eyes a lot. But all of that changed when I watched Prime's video. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is just mirroring the same setup that he has in Linux in macOS if you're interested in doing the same. Well, we're gonna do something similar. Not exactly, but somewhat similar. There are some requirements for his workflow. It has to be fast reacting when you press a key. And you have to be able to get to where you want with as few keystrokes as possible. In the video, he mentions that the inspiration came from playing StarCraft. So let's start with the first topic then, i3 Window Manager. As you're able to tell, that does not exist for macOS, but he uses i3 to move between applications. Notice that Alt3 takes him to the terminal, Alt2 for the browser, Alt1 for Twitch, Alt5 Slack, and so on. The goal is not to think where you want to go, just act. So with the single key press, you can go to each one of your applications. So what did I do to implement this functionality? I noticed that Prime keeps a single application on the screen at a time, and he also uses a single monitor. I don't remember the video in which I saw this, so if you find the video, please let me know down in the comments. So the window manager that I use in macOS is called Yabai. You're gonna find several different videos in YouTube. Most of them, if not all, organize applications in different desktops. What do I mean by this? Let me just grab my mouse and I'm just going to bring this up. Notice that I have 3 desktops here. So people usually put the applications on different desktops, but I didn't want to do that. So let me show you what I do instead. Notice that I'm in my browser right now. So I'm just going to type a key map here. You can read those key maps if I scroll down here a little bit. I have what is known as hyper sublayers, and that is what I use to switch between apps. I use the letter A for applications. So if I type here hyper AJ, it's going to take me to the terminal. How do I do this? I'm just going to leave hyper pressed, which in my case is right command. So I just leave it pressed. Then I type the letter A. I'm holding the letter A still. And now I'm just going to tap the letter J. You're going to notice that it switched me to the terminal. If I type hyper AY, it's going to take me to YouTube. If I type here hyper AF, that is going to take me to Finder or Forklift in this case. And you get the idea. I have a key map for each one of the different applications that I use the most. Let me show that to you real quick. I'm just going to type this hyper-TE. It's going to open this tmux session. And for example, here you can see the different apps that I have configured for the A sublayer. I'm gonna let you know how to do this in a little while. So as you're able to tell, when I switch between applications, it's instant. I don't have to wait for any animations. It just happens right away. So I'm just gonna go to the terminal. Notice that nothing happened on the screen. Just went back to the other app and notice how fast that is. That is exactly what I was looking for. You're gonna notice down here as well that to keep a single application on the screen, I use Yabai, but I use it in stack mode. There is another mode, which is BSP, which partitions your screen every time you open a new app. But that's just a mess. Why? Because you have to be putting applications in different desktops. Because if you open 2 applications in a desktop, each one of them is going to occupy half of the screen. And if I do that, I run into the same problem, organizing applications in different desktops. And I don't want that. I don't want to think where each application lives. I just want to turn my computer on and start switching between apps right away. And the good thing about stack mode is that it keeps me not distracted because I just have one thing on the screen at a time. I can only focus on one at a time, so that's even better for me. Another big reason I use a single monitor is because I also use a laptop. So when I switched back to the laptop, I was really slow. Why? Because if you use multiple monitors, you're gonna be used to that workflow of having 2 monitors, for example. If you're working on the laptop, you're gonna have 1. So the workflow is going to be completely different on the laptop. You will not be able to move fast. The benefit of this approach is that it doesn't matter if I'm on my external monitor or if I'm on the laptop, the workflow is always going to be the same, and I'm going to be as efficient on the external monitor and on the laptop. Notice that I have this pro tip section here. I usually switch between 2 applications. Notice that I'm in my browser right now. So I'm usually doing something in the browser, like reading a documentation or something, and I need to jump back to the terminal. So I need to go back and forth between the 2. I configured Carabiner, which is my keyboard mapping tool, so that when I tap Ctrl, which is this key on the left-hand side, it's going to switch me to the alternate application. Basically, it's going to send Command Tab. So I'm just going to tap that and notice that I'm switching between the 2 quite fast. I also tend to switch between 2 instances of the same application. I found out about this because of Theo, so I dedicated another key on my keyboard instead of doing Command tilde. To be switching between 2 instances of the same app, I have another key, which is the one here, right next to Control. So if I type this key here, it's going to switch between the 2 instances of the same application. The same thing if I go to YouTube, for example, I have 2 instances of YouTube open here, so I can switch between them quite fast. I don't have to do Command tilde, I just press this key. And that works basically with any other application. If you want to learn how I do all this keyboard mapping in macOS, I have this video. I go over everything in detail, so I would highly recommend you to check it out. Also, if you want to learn more about Yabai, that would take me a long time to cover in this video, so I have another video. You can go and check this out, and you're going to learn everything there. Notice that I have another section here, bonus Yabai tip. Notice that on the right-hand side, I have another small window. I called it skitty-notes. It's basically my Neovim configuration. It's a minimal configuration. I removed some plugins and changed some configs, but it's basically my sticky notes app. All of my Vim motions apply here, which I love a lot. I can mark tasks as done, do a lot of different stuff. I also have a video about that, so if you want to check that out, I'm going to list it here in the blog post as well. Now, the next section, which is tmux, which is the tool that Prime uses to switch between projects. Notice that I'm going to type here, -tj, that is going to take me to my .files. Where can you see that? If you notice here, you're going to be able to tell that this is the tmux session name on the top left corner. If I type another key, -tu, is going to take me to another tmux session. If I type here -tl, is going to take me to a different one. This is my blog post. Remember that if I hit Control, that is going to send Command Tab. So it's going to switch me to the previous app. And you can read some of the key maps that I have here, right? -tj, u, l. -th takes me to my home session, as you can see here. And I can go back to the previous app. This is a key map that I have for each one of the sessions that I use the most. But there are other sessions that I don't open all the time. So if I type the other key map that you see here at the bottom of this, -tn, notice what's going to happen. This FCF menu shows up. It allows me to search for a project here. When I select it, it automatically creates a tmux session. Again, this is a lot to cover in this small video, so I don't have time to go over everything in detail. But I do have a video in which I explain how the tmux-sshonizer works. And I also created another script. It's called the tmux-sshonizer-agen. And the concept is similar. If we read here a little bit on the top, notice that if I type here hyper-ej, it's gonna SSH to one of my hosts. Notice that I'm SSH'd into that specific device. Let me go back to the browser. Notice that if I type here hyper-ek, it's gonna SSH into a different host, the storage 3 host. Let's go back to the browser, and hyper-eu is gonna take me to the load balancer 3 host. Also, if I type here hyper-en, it's going to show me a list of the SSH devices in my SSH config file. So this key map parses that file, shows all of the hosts for me, and it allows me to create a tmux session for each one of them. So again, remember, I go over this on the video here listed below. And again, remember that I would also highly recommend you to watch my carabiner video so you can understand all my key maps. Let me show you my tmux sessions real quick. I'm just gonna go to the terminal and I'm just gonna type here hyper-f, which is Ctrl B. That's just the prefix key in tmux. And I'm just gonna type here the letter S. That is gonna show you the different sessions that I have. Notice that I have 8 sessions right now. And I can also navigate between sessions using this navigator here. So if I wanna go to my home session, for example, I can do it that way. I tend to end up with a lot of sessions open, like 15, 20, 25 sessions if I don't clean them up. So I created a script that cleans them up for me. And I go over that script in this video, the one that is shown here. If you want to go and check that out as well. And if you don't want to be worrying about cleaning sessions every day, every 2 days, you can configure the frequency however you want. Notice that I can switch to a tmux session from any app. So notice that I'm in the browser here. I don't have to be in the terminal. So I'm going to type here hyper-tj. That is going to take me to my .files. I'm going to go back to the browser and I'm going to type here hyper-tu. And that is going to take me to my notes. The way that I achieve that is using carabiner elements. And carabiner calls better touch tool. Then better touch tool is the one that focuses the terminal and sends the prefix plus key map. So that is the one that switches between different sessions. All of this is covered in my tmux-sshonizer video and the carabiner video. So just go and watch them if you don't understand what I'm talking about, or if you want to learn how to set that up. The different way of navigating is when you're inside a project or code base. Prime uses Telescope, and he also uses a plugin that he created, which is called Harpoon. I did use Telescope for a long time, but I recently switched to the Snack Picker. Why? I just feel that it's faster in my specific setup. I do get all the features that I had with Telescope. I'm not missing anything so far. I do have Harpoon installed, but I don't use it that much, probably because I don't code a lot. But if you're a developer, I think Harpoon would be a great plugin for you. The way that I navigate a lot when I'm inside a project, let me go to my notes real quick. Notice that I'm in this note called Prime Workflow. You can see the name of the note here. And if I want to switch to the alternate note or the note that I was in before, I just press letter backspace. Notice that it takes me to that note. I can press it again, letter backspace. So I'm switching between those 2 notes. If I open a new note, let's say that I'm here and I'm just going to open this other Glove 80 note. Let me open it up real quick and I'm just going to do the same thing, letter backspace, and I'm switching between those 2 notes. What if from this note that I'm here, the Glove 80, I want to go back to the blog post that I was working on? Just press Shift H, which brings up the Snacks Picker. This shows me all the buffers or all the files that I have open. Notice that this one is shown in the 3rd place because it has a frequency or recency option. So I just select that and I'm in that buffer again. Notice that I don't have tabs at the top of the screen. I find them very distracting. So I just like to have a number of how many buffers I have open. That is the number that you see here, the number 8. And I just switch between all my different buffers like this. I also switch between this tmux session and the alternate tmux session if I type the Shift key. Notice that I'm going to type in here on the left-hand side, Shift, and it switched me to the previous tmux session. I'm just going to type it again, and notice that I'm switching between 2 tmux sessions, right? The last 2 tmux sessions that I visited. That's something really useful for me as well. If you want to learn how to set up the Snacks Picker plugin, I have a video. It is the video that is shown here. You're going to be able to find it in the blog post. And if you want to learn more about Harpoon, I also have a video and it's shown here. Just a final notice before I let you go. Be careful with the hyperkey that you choose. The one that I chose at the beginning was caps lock, which is on the left hand. So I was using my pinky a lot. that caused a lot of forearm pain because, as you're able to tell, I use hyper pretty much the entire day. So I switched it. Now hyper is on my right thumb, is my right command key, which is the one shown here on the right hand side. So just keep that in mind. If you want to learn more about why I changed that, I'm just going to leave that information in the blog post. You can read it here. I haven't checked if there is an updated version of Primeagen's developer workflow. Probably there is. I would like to see what's new to learn new tricks. So I'm just going to look around, and if I find useful stuff, I'm just going to share it with you guys. Before I let you go, I just want to thank the supporters. I have them listed here: YouTube memberships, Ko-fi, Super Chats, and Ko-fi one-time donations. All of them are listed here. So I just want to say thanks to each one of you. And also, if you want to join Discord, I have a server. We have around 130 something members right now. I'm going to leave the link in the video description in case you want to join, ask questions, help others, or just hang out. All right, so I hope this video is useful and it helps you find some inspiration. That's it for today. I'll see you in the next video.